let's just roll straight into this. I think we should basically just start with, where are you? What have you been doing? What led up to it?
Cool. So yeah, I'm Josh. I live in Thailand. I'm currently based in a little town called Pai, which is like a little town in the valleys, up in the mountains. So it's about a 2.5 hour drive from Chiang Mai, which is the second biggest city in Thailand. Probably the digital nomad hub, but Pai, not so much, a bit more of a hippie place in a way. The best way I've ever had it described is a mate that came visit it actually, and they're like, it's like a small town that's having like a never-ending festival. So there's always like just little stalls everywhere. Like there's a big walking street, always stuff going on. Yeah, it's just a great vibe and a really lovely living here. Came out to Thailand in October 2021. Before that, we were living in Southampton. When we first came to Thailand, we did quite a lot of traveling about Thailand. Stayed there for a few months, like Krabi, Phuket, all that kind of side of it. Then we went up, did Chiang Mai, Pai, went back down, did like Bangkok, Ep1 Falls, some of the Kanchanaburi areas around there. Then went down to the South Islands, done a load of the South Islands like Koh Phangan, Koh Samui, Koh Tao, lived on those for a few months and then came back up. And then we've done like on visa runs, we've done quite a few other countries, Laos, Bali, Vietnam, all at different times. But yeah, mostly based in Thailand.
That's sweet. So what made you go there?
I guess it's a couple of things. First of all, in 2018, Fabs, my girlfriend, came to visit for like a month. So I think I had like 3.5 week books off work, which was an office drama in itself. And then we came out here and Fabs was in her second year of uni, I think. Second year of uni, something like that. And was like, I just want to stay here. Like, I don't want to go back to uni. So we just said, we're like, listen, we're going to go back, finish uni off. I wanted to like try and learn how to make money abroad. So we went home with that kind of purpose. I knew we were going to come back at some point. But I think for me, like I always say, the main thing for me is like, it's quite simple. It boils down to just having more time. Like I want my freedom and my time. And in the UK, you have to work very hard and make your money work for you to gain your time back. Whereas if you come to somewhere like Thailand or, countries around here like Vietnam, Singapore, Malaysia, not so much Singapore, it's expensive, but even like South American countries, Central American countries, you go to countries where the cost of living is much less. You're earning the same amount, means you basically need less time to make your life, like your life earnings. And then if you live kind of modestly and frugally, you could actually end up working like a day a week and easily living off that. So I think for me, I wanted more time to, get my more hobbies done, more learning done, and be able to kind of be in control of my time more. And that's the main kind of thing it boiled down to.
Do you feel like it's done that? How do you think your kind of quality of life has changed since you started traveling and living cheaper than in the UK?
I mean, it's always swings and roundabouts, isn't it? There's always positives and negatives. So in terms of when I first came out here, like I kind of envisioned myself working, I can't remember what I said. I think it was meant to be living off 80% savings, 20% earnings. And then I wanted by, I think a year in, the plan was originally like 50-50. And then kind of 18 months in, I wanted to be living off just saving, off just working and then I managed to do that quite a lot faster. But within doing that, there was times when like I was working loads, and originally I moved out here and was like, I'm never going to work 5 days a week again. And then it got to the point where I was like, I'm working more than I work full time. Like, and I'm making good money, and, I'm in these beautiful places. So it goes in kind of waves. I think at the moment, like I've got a much better work-life balance with it. It's taken a while to get there, but I think in that there was a lot of lessons to be learned about, kind of filling up your time and, doing any work that's offered to me, which I think is one of the biggest lessons. Don't do anything for money, any work for money, because you end up being dragged 100 ways. Like I think actually you said it to me once, you don't want to be a mile wide and an inch deep.
Mm-hmm.
Is that it?
Yeah, it's like being pulled in all directions, because you never really get to where you want to go if you're being pulled in like every direction. So yeah, mate, that's sick. It's good that you managed to do that. How much quicker do you think you got to where you wanted to get to if you instead of living in the UK, let's say?
I think a lot quicker, but I think there's kind of two parts to that argument. I'd say first of all, obviously is about like having more time and being able to do that, so it going quicker. But second of all was actually just taking the jump. Like in the UK, from about, I think in about 2018, I worked for a company called Slow Dating, where I was the events manager for them, which is like a speed dating company, because I was working in kind of events and marketing stuff before that. And so I ended up being my own boss from kind of 2018, kind of being able to pick my hours. However, that kind of sounds like idyllic and great, but when you're the only person working for the company, you pick your own hours. But it also meant there was just a never ending pile of, and because of that, all these things that I wanted to do, like I think I found like a book the other day, which is like a book I use for like learning, doing courses. And I think I actually started digital marketing courses in like 2019. So in a way, like I think it's sped up because I'm out here, but in a way, I think there was groundwork that I tried to lay from quite early. And I think that kind of, as you know, I think kind of one step forward each day really starts to snowball with things like this.
Yeah, mate. That's definitely how it works. I mean, you got to start somewhere, and it's good that you had a kind of taste of working for yourself almost before you went there and just did that as your full-time, thing away from home.
Yeah, I think it was good because I learned so much in that job, and it definitely enabled me to do what I'm doing, because first of all, I learned to kind of manage my time. Well, first of all, I learned to manage my time really shit. And then I started learning to manage my time a bit better as it kind of went, because like in that job, I could work the events as well, which meant like a lot of the time and I get paid more to work events. So I'd like do loads of events I'd be working Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday every week in different cities, traveling to and from. But after a bit, I realized like it's not sustainable because I can't do my job better. So I think I learned a lot of lessons kind of with that were very helpful that I've carried through to this. And I think you're right. Like I was lucky to be able to kind of have the opportunity to manage my time then. But obviously a lot of that groundwork kind of got stunted with the whole COVID.
One of the biggest hurdles for working freelance is managing your time and being effective, because if you're used to just working for someone else and you clock in and you clock out, you've never had to really think about it from the owner's perspective. And this is one of these things where that does take time to learn, because you need to kind of know what you're doing, know what works, know what doesn't work. You have to make the mistakes, because there's not really a guidebook. There's a framework to it, but it really sticks when you make the mistakes and you learn kind of by trying and doing.
Definitely. I think the biggest thing for me that I think I'd recommend to everyone is to somehow, whatever way it is to end up trying to love learning. Because like I think 2-3 years ago, you'd never ever have caught me reading a book. Like, I hadn't read a book since school for years and years. And then I got to a point where I was like, I want to learn these skills and learn these knowledge. So much of it is in these books that then I just was like, all right, shut up, read a book. So I started off just like reading a really easy book and then like building that. And I think that's one of the biggest things for me is now I love reading. I love listening to audiobooks, podcasts, doing different courses, everything. Like I love learning. And I never really got on with that too much in school, not in like A levels, at least. Like I have no A levels. I didn't get into uni. I couldn't concentrate that way, but learning to love learning more is definitely something that's massively, massively instrumental. Just kind of going anywhere you want to go, like whatever you want to do, even if you don't know what you want to do. The more you read, the more you learn, like the more you're going to know.
There's another thing, it's somewhat related, but the more you learn, the more you earn. In terms of a freelancer who's trying to develop themselves, you need to learn more so that you can, expand your skill set and become a more valuable person, like so that you can deliver something valuable to a company and actually get paid for it.
100%. And I think like, in a way, I wouldn't say that my heroes are Bill Gates and people like that. However, if you want to look at, earning money, having freedom, being that rich, having that much power that you could influence. If you look at the way any of those people ever, preach, it's all about learning. Like Bill Gates learns a few hours every day. Like Warren Buffett, the best investor in America, probably the most famous investor in America. He just reads like articles and stuff about businesses all day long. And that's just, it's just what you do at the end of the day. Like the more you learn, the more you can earn, the more. I've been reading Rich Dad Poor Dad as well. And he talks like a lot in that about, the absolute best thing you can invest in is yourself and your knowledge. And even if like he's talked about doing courses and reading books and like, I think he talks about like a podcast or something that he listens to a speech where he says basically he thinks the guy's completely wrong. And he's like, it's an investor talking about an investment strategy. And he's like, I think he's so wrong, but he listened to it 20, 30 times until he understood exactly where it was coming from. And he's like, I don't necessarily agree with it. I now know a complete different way of thinking and to look at things. And I just think being open like that. And as you said, failing. Like the best way to learn is through failing and knowing I'm not going to do that again.
Yeah, it makes it stick when it's something where you've actually got a responsibility and you fail and you have the consequences of it. It makes it hit harder than just reading
100%. I think one of the biggest things for me as well is like, once I start to learn these skills and then apply them back to businesses and then quoting them for work, especially like businesses that have kind of, in a way, helped me learn these things. I've been like, oh yeah, like I'll do it for this much. And then like I do the whole work and I figure it out and I'm like, I could have charged like 3 times as much for that and it would have been completely fine. Like it would have been brought them that much value. And I think that's something that's really hard of being a freelancer, is kind of not, because I learned sales, I did sales jobs, not necessarily the sale, but the kind of understanding the value and bringing that value as well.
I think not underselling yourself is something that you just start to do less as you go. You know, once you start to see the value of your work and you can say, actually, I know how much value this is bringing to the company, so this is a reasonable price to charge them. Like, you build that confidence as you go. I remember always second guessing myself on pricing people and thinking, oh, that's too expensive. And now, essentially every quote that I've done for the last probably 3 or 4 months, I've just nearly doubled it and just done it way higher than I would normally do it. And I've not had pushback on the price once.
No.
And that's
it just makes you think. Like, what can I do? Can I keep going? Like,
I could have charged. Well, I would have been charging half the price if I didn't.
Yeah, that's the thing. I do a lot of SEO work, and with SEO, like a common kind of practice is that you do them in audits. So people do free audits that are really minor. But if you do like a deep audit, basically you give them enough information that they know all the problems and they can fix it. The 9 times out of 10, they're going to come back to you and be like, "Oh, can you fix them all?" So it's kind of like the hook, line and sinker, but you also get paid for the audit. But like I had an audit the other day where, like, as you said, I literally was there and I literally had the email all written and I had the quote written. I literally just went like, added like £300-400, just changed the number. And I'm just like, oh, just send it, whatever. And they absolutely push back. Like, yeah, great. Yeah. Great price. Cool.
This is the thing.
Today. And I was just like,
that's the thing, mate. When you could have just charged half the money for that and they wouldn't have been like, oh, that's too cheap. You know, if it was too cheap, really, like some people would push back and be like, are you sure you can actually do this for that money? Like if they're clever about it. But
yeah, and like I've done things that I've done cheap deals to bring in bigger deals. Like, for example, that one I was literally just talking about, I did an audit for, they started their own new website and wanted an audit. Now, like, an audit for a new website can obviously be useful because you can set them up from going from, set them get going in the right direction. But also then like the people that she thought were her competitors also had really bad websites as well.
Yeah.
So like basically sold her that audit and made pretty much no money on it. Like they, paid myself lower than I normally would. However, from that work, I've had 3 audits since and that's great. And the thing about an audit is I can do the audit, see all the problems. If they then turn around like, oh, can you fix them? I can just be like, nah, it's not something that I, want to do.
What do you mean?
Well, for example, sometimes with like websites, I know you understand websites, but I want to work with specific clients that work with specific easy frameworks for me to fix.
Right.
So for things like WordPress, like I want to work with WordPress websites. I want to work with sites that have spent money marketing somehow. And I know that they can see the ROI marketing. They understand it. I also prefer if I can work with bigger companies that have development teams. So rather than me, I can either outsource the development myself or I literally just have to give them instructions. They can do it. I have their help. When something doesn't add up to me, I can just get them on a call and be like, can you explain why the website's built this way? And then I can look at reviewing it a different way. Those clients to me are worth so much more than a client that hasn't spent any money on marketing, doesn't understand any of it. Because I'm just met with rules. I'm like, oh, we need to do this. They're like, oh, well, why? And then I spend all this time explaining things. And I'm like, well, because I time everything. And I'm like, look at the billable time. You've spent a third of what we're meant to spend just arguing with me over whether I want to do it, whether you want to do it. And then have bigger companies that are just like, oh yeah, like we don't need a weekly call. Let's do a call every 2-3 months. And then I just have like a project management overview that they can look at any time. Those clients to me are worth so much more because I have so much time to figure out exactly what to do with them. Even if I don't know what to do, I effectively have enough time to learn, read case studies, sort it out, and then get it all made by the time they even, see a product, see the delivery.
Yeah. It's so important to have that avatar when you're targeting companies as a freelancer, knowing
100%.
who you won't work with.
Yeah.
So how do you go about
I think
finding?
that's one of the biggest.
How do you find people like that? Is it a secret?
Yeah, do you know what? My big secret is so boring. It's all referrals. Like,
Yeah.
and pretty much all the work I've ever done is someone knows someone and they're like, oh, you really helped me with this. Can you help them with this? And especially like where we're based, or where I was based, like Southampton, I constantly will get a job with someone. They're like, oh, new company in Southampton. I'm like, oh, I actually work with this web developer on another project. Or, oh, you used to use that company for marketing. Oh, I actually work with 2 people that used to be in that company now. And like one of the ways I get a lot of my work is I work for another company called the CRM Squad, who are absolutely brilliant at what they do. And they basically do what I do, but on a bigger scale. So they do like bigger marketing, performance marketing, revenue operations. But it almost, I work for them as a freelancer. And then any clients that kind of don't qualify for them, they can send to me.
You can handle them. Yeah. That's
So client
really
acquisition for me has been absolutely brilliant because, it's more about just chatting to people and building those relationships.
So how did you get that
I do
first
have-
relationship with the
So,
CRM Squad? How do you get something like that?
When I worked for Slow Dating originally, the speed dating company,
Yeah.
we did work with like freelance SEOs and freelance like digital marketers and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And through that, I had like a woman, Ellie Zellahaver, who came in to the office and worked with me one day. And like, she was just brilliant. Like I just found it so interesting, everything she was doing, like looking at a website, measuring some changes for a week and then coming back and going, oh, by the way, your website's probably going to make $3,000 a month more if you change this, and this.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like blown away by that. So I always kept in contact with her, started doing loads of digital marketing courses. She was sending me digital marketing courses to do. She said to me, like, I'm looking at starting a company based on HubSpot and CRM. So I then just went into the HubSpot Digital Marketing Academy. So for all digital marketing stuff, Google, HubSpot, Ads, Meta, all of these things have complete free courses on how to do them that the companies bring out. So it's almost like, why would you not do them? So I just started getting more and more of those under my belt. And then it got to the point where I could be useful to them, start working with them as a freelancer, and it kind of organically grew from there. And then she had a lot of her own clients. So obviously she's now honing in on her business and concentrating on those. So a lot of her own freelance clients, she's like, oh, well, can you help me with those? And then, over the last since I've been out here, I've been building up kind of a big team of freelancers as well that I then outsource my work to. So I've got some great freelancers from different places in Europe, some freelancers in India and Pakistan, some freelancers in the Philippines. And obviously by leveraging that, I can do more work, more time consuming work for the same price or for a lower price by leveraging that. But also understanding the tasks that you're giving to people means that as you're outsourcing tasks, that they're done correctly because I've written the exact instructions and SOP of how I want them to be done.
Yeah. Going from doing the work yourself to writing it out as a brief for someone is a skill in itself. And I found that a little bit challenging because sometimes you don't really think about it in the minute details.
Yeah.
That's a bit of a learning curve.
So I think two things that help me, massively. Two things that massively help me with that. And I'm a fiend for an online tool. Like, and I know you are too with like an AI tool as well. Like any time I feel like most of my like work and business, everything is like, I just found loads of really good tools online that do it really simply.
Mm-hmm.
But what was your question?
So,
going to
freelancers and then writing the SOPs and briefs for freelancers to do the work.
Yeah. So I use things. So Loom is one which you can record like a little video of you in the corner and your screen. So you can record more finite instructions of how to do things. Then there's also one, I think it's called Scribe. Yeah, Scribe. And that when you do things, it records your actions. So for example, if I was like how to post a Facebook post, I'd be like, I'd click Scribe on, then I'd go to Facebook, log in with the account details, click enter, click to the Facebook page, and Scribe will record all of those things as instructions.
Right.
Then you can go into that and you can X those out. Scribe's great. And then also I use ChatGPT. So I get ChatGPT to write the instructions and then I change them to what I want. ChatGPT is live. We were saying that before the call.
Yeah.
But I just think, I think Alex Hormozy talks about kind of, another book you recommended me actually was I'm not going to be able to say it, the Naval of Ravikant. No.
Oh, the Almanac of Naval Ravikant. That's such a sick book.
Really such a sick book. But he talks about kind of building leverage so that you can do things better. And that's I like a lot about freelancing, about the tools and about ChatGPT. Like it just gives you so much more leverage. Like if I can write out an instruction paragraph that's that big in 10 seconds and then edit it in 2 minutes, and it's so much better than anything I could have made in 10 minutes, 15 minutes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like it's so for SOPs and stuff like that, that's good. So that's SOPs, like standards of procedure. That's what I'm trying to kind of build now. So I know that you use Notion, I use ClickUp, and trying to kind of build those things up so that, you know, every single task is written exactly how you want to do it. And then the idea is that if I can keep that to a high level. So at the moment, I've kind of zeroed in on a few clients that like I actually see a long-term relationship with. So I've got probably about 7 or 8 clients now that I work with, but there's 3, 4 that I kind of do more work with than the others. And I'm using those as kind of case studies that I can, you know, hopefully get all of this sorted, make sure everything works perfectly to the point that then it's a scalable model and it can be kind of outsourced. But that comes from, and I've got it here, and I have it here by coincidence. I'm not that sad, but the 4-hour work week, Tim Ferriss, that just like, it's a mind blowing book, but that just changes my life. You're like thinking about everything.
Yeah. It does.
And I think the main thing with everything, like in terms of starting a business, moving abroad, everything is just basically stopping from thinking in ways that people have taught you to think your whole life. So it's just about kind of changing thought patterns in terms of like, even like travel, like the whole travel myth. There's a book called like How to Travel the World for $100 a Day. And I kind of skimmed it, didn't read it all. Like some of it's more like finite information for each place you go. But like the first chapter that just talks about how basically the travel industry is a multi-million, billion-pound industry where they sell you this idea that you go away and you get this beautiful villa and, you know, you book the transfer with them and you fly directly there because it's easier and you book your tours through them and everything. Because it creates this idea that you spend loads of money on a holiday. So that works for them. And they've done that for the last hundreds of years, like 100 years odd, just to make you think that when you go traveling, you spend more money and you need to do that. But if you think about it as a simple sum, if you move somewhere with lower cost of living and live within your means, then it's so much cheaper. But it's kind of like trying to change, it's changing those thought patterns, isn't it? Like,
yeah, I mean, you can definitely go cheaper than, you know, what the kind of consensus is. You'd think that, I mean, people go on like a 2-week holiday and it's like, you know, £1,000 a week, but then you can live somewhere for like £600 a month.
Yeah. One of my friends came to Thailand and I had my friends come to Thailand. They did move every like 2-3 days. Don't get me wrong. But like they're like just over 2 weeks, moved over 2-3 days. And just on hotel, they spent like £1,400. And I was just like, that is more than Fabs and I together spending a month on like rent, bills, renting a bike, food, like everything.
Yeah. I had a bit of a taste of that.
Like, yeah.
Like went to somewhere. So I was going from renting a room in Southampton. So in a shared house, a rented room was like 430 quid to moving into an apartment in Rome, just outside of Rome in Italy, for £345 a month. So I was like saving money, and I was in an amazing place. And ever since then, that was my first glimpse into like, if I made money online, I can go and travel the world and it's actually cheaper. Like I came back with more money and it's like, wait, what? How was that even one of the options there?
Like people are like, oh, how do you afford to live in Thailand and that? And I'm just like, I've now got to the point where like I'm saving like probably at a faster rate than I was in the UK.
Yeah. That's what I like about it as well, because it's a good way to save money, travel the world. And I think as well, you probably experience this as well, but like when you just go in the deep end, it just forces you to get on with it. Like you're there, you have your savings, you don't want to use it, but like you're forced. It's like this coal under your feet that makes you start running. Yeah. You just make it happen.
Yeah. that's like that, the Rich Man in Babylon, the book you gave me, that obviously talks about paying yourself first and like investing and paying yourself first. But then the Rich Dad Poor Dad talks about that as well, and talks about how actually the hardest thing is having the self-discipline to do that. And they talk about, they're like, we're not talking about not paying your taxes. We're just talking about sometimes the tax man wants your money for some reason, but you still need to have the self-discipline to pay yourself first and invest. And it was like, sometimes, yeah, my investment could come through quickly and I could use that money. But more importantly, it's that I paid myself first. I know that I'm investing. I know that I'm going to, make my money work for me that way. Now I need to find the money for the tax man.
Yeah.
And it's as you say that if you put yourself in those situations, you have to resolve it.
Yeah, you have to. You just got to make it happen.
Yeah.
Like, I was talking to my auntie, and my cousin is like, he still lives at home, and I just said to my auntie the other day, I said, you just need to kick him out. And she's like, obviously I don't want him to get kicked out, but I was like, I was like, just kick him out, because then he'll have to do it. Because she's always complaining, doesn't clean up after himself. He doesn't pay for everything. He uses the car, doesn't put fuel in it. I was like, just boot him out, because then he has to do it. I was like, the reason he doesn't is because if he doesn't earn money,
it's allowed,
he's going to come home, have food on the table, and have somewhere to sleep. So what's the point in being this organized, like, hyper effective person when there's, you've already got everything that you would have anyway? But I think, so in terms of like the mindset, the mindset shift you get from learning and reading books is important, because the way you think about things influences your behavior, and your behavior is what influences the outcome you get. Like your situation is like a lagging indicator of the behavior that you've had for the last, say, 12 months. Like your financial situation is a lagging indicator of your behavior and your spending. So,
but it's like putting on weight and losing weight, isn't it? When people are like, oh, I'm trying to lose weight, like I want to eat healthier. And I'm just like, just concentrate on today. And I'm not saying that's like the easiest thing to do, but like if you eat more calories than you burn off today, then you're going to put on weight. And like, if you just do that, if you every single day work yourself in a calorie deficit, or even if, you don't want to, a lot of people don't want to look at just calories, like you just start eating healthy whole foods, or you start intermittent fasting. It doesn't actually matter what you do. Like with diets, they did like a meta-analysis study, where they basically took all like loads and loads of thousands of experiments on diets to see which diet's the best. And they actually found that no diet is better than any other. You just have to stick to the one you go on. Like, it doesn't matter what you do. If you stick to it, it will keep working. It's as you say.
Mate, that is such an applicable statement you just made to everything. Like, just keep doing it. Like, you can work in any industry. You can basically work in any kind of career, any path you decide to go for. If you stick at it, you can create something from it, and you can get the results that you want from it.
Yeah. 100%. I think a lot of people always say to me, like with my kind of career, they're like, oh, you got managed. Like I got management jobs. I was managing like a pub when I was 18. Like I then like moved out here, when I moved out to Southampton, took a really low job, because basically every single job I just viewed as a stepping stone. And I saw exactly what I needed to get to the next step. Right. I didn't know what the end goal was, but I was like, I want to be my own boss, really. I wanted to work in events or music and stuff. That now changes to kind of marketing, but like that's what it was at that point. So I was like, okay, well, I've never worked properly in an office, so I'll go do an office job and get the skills for that. And I worked in that for a bit, and then I was like, oh, I left that job, and I was like, I didn't have any job to go to, but there was nowhere for me to go up. So I was like, I'm going to leave. Got a job at like a telecoms company doing sales and marketing. It was horrific, but I learned so much in that time. Like, and I knew I needed to learn that. And then I went then into a management role in like an events company, and like every single thing, there was like a stepping stone and a reason why. And it doesn't matter if your reason is not perfect. Like, as you said, like I took a job working in an office for media, like planning out, like it was called like complex business administration, but it's just admin. But like that had some office skills, and I knew that those office skills are easy to talk about transferable skills into management. And it's just, if you can see the vision and see this next step, then you keep going. Like I can't remember who said it, but someone said like, as long as you fall forward, doesn't matter how many times you fall.
Yeah.
Because you're going forward. Like, even if you fail every single day, but you're falling forward, you're still moving forward.
Yeah. Okay, should we talk a bit about how you budgeted to go traveling? Talk about how you budgeted to go traveling. My voice went a bit there.
Cool. So yeah, budgeting to go traveling is boring and exciting subject.
Mm-hmm.
But first of all, like, we started to just save money. So now, like, I'm more about kind of trying to invest my savings and stuff. But back then it was very much, I need to save money to have as much money to fall back on. I think if I took the fear out of the equation now, I probably wish that I was using more money to invest into assets that could have made me money that I could now be traveling on. But at the time, we just wanted to save. So Fabs had a job at a recording studio. She works in music, always wanted to work in music, but she was like on part-time hours for that and they couldn't really increase her hours. So she took a job in recruitment, and she obviously got paid commission as well on top. I then just started, as I said earlier, like I could work events. I started working a lot more events as well on top of my job. Also work festival bar management on the weekends. So I did a lot of that at the weekends, which kind of meant, whilst it's fun to do it with all my friends and, it's a festival, like it did kind of mean that if I was working in the week and then the weekend, there were times where like I was working for 20 odd, 30 odd days in a row.
Yeah.
And, I did get my breaks in between, but like I just worked a lot and saved a lot. But regardless of that, to be honest, the absolute biggest thing is just cutting your costs. And I think actually you've always been a big preacher of that. Like if you can cut your outgoings, like increasing your incomings is obviously one way, but if you can cut your expenses as low as possible, that's the best thing you can do.
Stacks up quicker.
Started cutting our expenses. We reviewed, like, I think there was like some app that we got that went on logged into all of our banks and saw all of our subscriptions, started cancelling them off, started making little agreements with people like, you can have my Netflix if I can have your Disney Plus. Just little things like that. Those are what I said, most shopping as cheap as possible, not eating out as much. But then also a massive thing for us was 3-4 months before we knew we were leaving, we started to sell our things on Facebook and Gumtree and stuff. And sometimes it's not always about getting the best deal, but it's about someone removing that and getting some money from it.
Yeah.
And then we got a lot more of that. We did things like when we moved out of our flat, we like borrowed some paint that was the same color and like fixed up the paint and like, proper deep cleaned the oven so that we could get all of our deposit back. And then also just before we went traveling, we had like family give us money, which obviously was super nice and we were super grateful for, but we also had kind of accounted savings without that.
Right.
So we went out, I think we went out between Fabs and I, we had about 12K. I don't think that's like a marker. I think like I've had friends that have come out here with 2-3K and been completely fine. For Fabs and I, it's obviously a little cheaper because we often book we always book rooms together, which means like, even to say like a hostel bed for one person is like £6 a night. You can normally get a room for £7 a night, which obviously then £3.50 each. So
let's say that period leading up to it, right? I know you moved out of your flat. Like, how long did you move out of the flat before you went traveling? Did you I think you went and stayed at Fabs' parents for a while?
Yeah, we did, but not for too long. So like we did like kind of sums and I actually figured out like, cause I worked a lot of events that I'd be getting trains and stuff too. I lived in Southampton from the centre where I could cycle to the train station in 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And then I'd take my bike, go to Portsmouth, get off at the station and cycle like a mile because it was quicker than getting off at the next stop. All that stuff kind of worked out well. So I stayed in our flat for as long as possible. We had a spare room in our flat. So we had our mate Jimmy move in.
Mm-hmm.
Rest his soul, bless him. So we had Jimmy move in for a bit, which obviously reduced our rent because he was paying cheaper than he was paying for rent in our place. And we were getting some of our rent paid then. That also gave us a couple grand extra because it's over like 4 or 5 months. We just saved all that money. Yeah, so I guess there's quite a few things that we tried to do. And then when we moved out eventually, I think we did about 3 weeks in Fabs' parents' house, which Fabs' parents moved to New Forest right near Southampton where we lived anyway. Mm-hmm. So it's still like a 20-minute drive. Like I think it took me an hour and a half to cycle in, but it's not too bad. And we lived there for about 3 weeks and then lived at my house. So I'm from Bedford, just north of London. My mum lives in Northampton. So I went and lived with my mum for a couple of weeks. And that was probably only about 5 weeks. I know a lot of people do that for longer to save. And I think that's a great way. But for us, we were a bit like, I think we'd spend a lot of money on taxis getting back into Southampton and stuff and trains. And I thought actually I can make quite a lot more money by being here, sorry.
How long do you think it took to go from just living life normally before you started cutting expenses for traveling to being ready and having the money to go? And like, how extreme was the cost cutting? Like, I know you like got rid of a few luxuries, but Did you really change your lifestyle that much? Like, what was that?
I mean, we still went to the pub and went out with people.
Yeah.
We like became massive fans of what are they called? What do you take? Hip flasks. We became a big fan of hip flasks.
Okay.
Saving a bit of money going out. Did start drinking less, I guess. Now, not as much. Cooking a lot. But we always cooked a lot anyway. Fabs is vegetarian. I went veggie. I wouldn't call myself vegetarian, but I eat veggie most of the time. I believe that saved us money. A lot of people argue that, it's not, but I definitely think it saved money. Especially as like, I love shopping in like world food stores, going down, getting like, a load of veg, like bartering them on the crap cauliflower. Like, come on, mate, it's tiny. Let me have it cheaper. Yeah. So I love doing that stuff anyway. So definitely we definitely did make life changes, but I wouldn't say anything like so drastic. We used to go on a lot of city breaks and we didn't do that anymore. We did some more UK breaks, but I guess it kind of coincided with COVID anyway.
I remember you did a little like camping trip or something. You went to like Durdle.
Yeah, like
was it Durdle Door you went to? Where did you go?
We went down to like, so
when you borrowed the stove?
We down to like, we borrowed your camping stove, didn't we?
Yeah.
We went and stayed like just past Bournemouth. I don't think it's as far as Durdle Door. I can't remember exactly where it was. Camped in the car.
Just doing little things like that.
Yeah, it was nice and it was fun, but like slept horrifically. But then we were up for like 4:00 in the morning, sunrise, like sat on the beach watching the sunrise, like flying our drone about.
Yeah.
Having a great time. And then, we drove back home. We were home by like 8, got back in bed.
Yeah.
But like we did a lot more stuff like that, which was fun. And like trying to think of more like plans to do where you're not drinking as much. Not even, I know that you went sober and like, but mine's not necessarily about the drinking. It's more about the money that you spend. But like making active decisions to do things is the best way to save money. For example, like how many times did you and I like go on like big cycles where we went for the whole day?
Yeah, yeah.
And like, we go for like 4 or 5 hours. We'd cycle like an hour at a time and stop off in loads of paying places, go like nice coffee shops and that. And you end up spending like 15 quid for a whole day. Sleep like an absolute baby because you've been like cycling all day.
Yeah, definitely.
And like instead of just sitting at the pub all day where you actually end up sinking like 60 quid without even thinking, like 70 quid without even thinking. And that's me drinking 2 years ago. Like I know that the prices have skyrocketed since.
I dread to think what a pint costs in the UK now. 8 quid or something in Southampton now. I think people may be surprised that you don't need to completely just change your whole life to just make that happen.
I think for me, it's obviously look at the simple math sums of obviously you can have X amount saved, but if you're earning the whole time, then you can live within your means. You can live off your earnings. Doesn't matter how much you got saved. You're barely touching it. That's saved for if you run out of money and you need to fly home. But so it's like Fabs is doing like a lot of her own business stuff now, doing like a music consultancy and has a few clients. That's going really well. But like she has always had her basis of teaching English online, which is like 5 websites you can sign up to teach English online. It's conversational practice. People already speak English. Sometimes it's boring. Sometimes you get super interesting people. Like Fabs has talked to like some, like, I think it was like the creative manager of TikTok or something like that, like some really high up in TikTok in Asia and like loads of like interesting people that have interesting life stories. But that basis, if you come out here and start teaching, or you can get some freelance work, even if it's 1 gig that you start doing straight away, you're already earning money. It sets the premise of, watching your account, making sure you earn more and trying to find ways to earn more.
Should we talk a bit about the cost of living in Thailand and how much you guys spend on just living?
Yeah, of course. It's normally angers people. No, so it's completely based on where you live in Asia. Like there's Asia as a whole is a lot cheaper. Southeast Asia, where I am, but different places are obviously different prices. Living in the islands, like by the beach, is a lot cheaper. It's a lot more expensive, obviously, lots more luxuries. And there are cheaper islands, but if you want to go to the big buzzy islands, they're obviously more expensive. If you want to live up north, it's cheaper. So we love Chiang Mai, the big city. We live in Pai, which is super cheap. Meals, kind of, if you eat Thai, like if you only eat Thai meals or like, like meals from like local people. So like be that Burmese people or like even there's some like Indian restaurants and stuff that you can get for like kind of 40 baht to 80 baht. And that's, so 40 baht is roughly £1. So it's like £1 to £2 for most meals. It's cheaper to eat out here. Like we have a kitchen here that we cook in, but that's more of a luxury. It's more expensive. You can eat out for like, if you want to eat Western food, like burgers and pizza and that, probably 5-6 quid a meal, maybe cheaper in some places, £3-4 a meal for a burger and chips in some places. Alcohol is for a beer, like a big beer is like 100 baht, maybe. So that's like £2.50 for a big beer. If you're drinking Thai beers, obviously, if you're drinking like imported from Europe beers like Heineken and stuff, it's usually a bit more expensive. Living wise, we pay, so we've got like a flat here that's like a bit of like a tiny house. It's got like a bed over here, like a little office section here, a living room section, a kitchen section and our own bathroom. We pay 8,000 baht a month, which is about £200. So it's about £100 each a month. We then pay for our bills on top of that, which is about 500-600 baht a month if we don't use aircon, which we rarely do anymore, which is another like 15 quid. We pay 1,500 baht for our bike, which is 1,000 baht, about 25 quid. It's about £37.50 a month for our bike. Top that up, petrol every 2-3 days, which costs £2. Like, you know, our actual living costs are so cheap out here. And you can enjoy such a nice high quality of life where you go into swimming pools and, you know, going on nice, beautiful walks and swimming in rivers and stuff for not a lot of money at all. I reckon it is a ballpark figure. I don't have it figured out, but I reckon we'd probably spend about £1,000 to £1,500 between us on living each month on everything.
That's nuts.
Mad. It's mad. When you think like we used to have a flat in Southampton that was £800 a month and then bills on top of that, we've already exceeded our monthly spending and everything. You know, and then you can be in the cold weather where you got heating. Like we never really bang on heating here. Like in Pi in the north, it gets cold in the mornings, cold in the afternoons, in the evenings, sorry. But you just have a couple of duvets, like you're fine. And it's still 30, 35 every day.
So it's funny you mention heating because I've got one of these plugs that measures the electricity of, you know, like it measures how much electric it's using. And I put my radiator into it. I mean, this little radiator that's in my bedroom is costing about 40 or 50 quid a month. And it's not even on all the time.
Yeah.
And it's like...
so mad, isn't it?
I'm spending £50 a month just to heat this room and it's freezing. It's like not... I wouldn't even say it's warm.
Yeah, it's a nightmare. Yeah, I've got a fan. Oh, actually, I've got my aircon on, but rarely ever had the aircon on. But that's the only thing that really costs for electricity. But like, even when we lived in like a house of four with four of us, and also like, you can live for cheaper than that if you want to. If you only eat Thai meals, you're spending like 40 baht a meal, 3 meals a day. That's £3 a day on food. Say, I don't know, £1 on water, let's say. So that's like £4. If you can live off that, and then you're paying what you can get places where if everything's cheaper monthly. So if you put monthly places, we were finding places for like 3,000-4,000 baht monthly, and they're like unfurnished and stuff, but that's 75 quid, 100 quid for a month's rent. You know, you can spend nothing if you really want to. Like, I know people that have been out here on like a couple hundred quid for months and months.
Yeah, that's so cheap. So how do you find the places so cheap? Where do you book stuff to live so cheap?
So there is like a tactic to it. So obviously when you're traveling short term, so like a lot of people come here and they're like, oh, I spent this much money, but then they're traveling every few days. Obviously transport is going to be expensive, even though like you can get cheap buses here. And even like I can fly from the north to the south for like 20 quid, maybe 40 quid sometimes. But like that all racks up. If you want to find like cheap housing and stuff, we often do Airbnb, do a lot of monthly deals. Those are clutch. You know, you can find really good deals on there where you pay a couple hundred quid for like a really nice place for a month. But the key to it is Facebook. Like Facebook is insane in this part of the world. Like everyone's on Facebook. There's like Facebook, and even that there's an app called like Line that you use, like WhatsApp. You can run a whole business through just Facebook and WhatsApp here. Like massively, like, and you know, we've got loads of Facebook groups. So as we travel, we join groups. Like, for example, where we're going to the island Koh Phangan, we join like Koh Phangan rentals, expats in Koh Phangan, houses Koh Phangan, long-term rentals, loads of different groups like that. And then in the group, loads of people are listing on them. So obviously, if you then are renting directly from a landlord, you're getting a much better deal than if you're ever going to book through any website. And also you can find like a really nice place, and they haven't had to spend money on marketing or anything like that. So it works out really good. So we find most of our places through Facebook, really. Yeah, saving money, but also like even like help and advice. Like if you want to find out something about a visa or anything like that, you want to find out the best places to exchange money, like even like tips, like I found out. So like when you come out here, everything's 220 baht to get money out at an ATM. So basically you pay £4 or £5 just to get your money. You then get exchange rates, and you can get like a low exchange rate. Often when it comes up, it says like, okay, so basically says, do you want to get it out in your currency or their currency? So it'll say like 5,000 baht, 100 and that's like 124.
Yeah, they always rob you on those.
Exact. They'll be like, oh yeah, it's 140 quid. Do you want to continue with this conversion rate? And if you say no, which it doesn't tell you, you get your MasterCard conversion rate or Visa conversion rate, which is always better. But I had a mate that was out for 6 months and didn't know that. And then we figured it out. And he's like, I spent I think it was like £2,000 on basically just if you go into a bank with your passport, and you go in and you wait and you ask them how much, and then take a scan of your passport and you sign it, you get the best exchange rate and you don't pay any fee. I found that out in a Facebook group. That has saved me hundreds and hundreds of pounds over the time we've been here. And made me think, when we're in other countries and our cards aren't working and we're like, oh, let's go into the bank and see. And we go into the bank and they can help us and you get a better exchange rate. And all these things, like little tips and tricks, loads of it's found through Facebook groups. The best way to learn anything is off someone that knows how to do it.
That's interesting. I kind of wondered why you guys get cash, because I kind of seen you going to the bank and stuff. So there are places where cards just don't work.
Thailand's a massively cash-heavy country. So most stuff you pay for, no one has card. It's different now, obviously, as we're in the kind of more modern era. Everyone has these QR codes. So you have to have a Thai bank. But on a Thai bank, you literally just scan the QR code and send them money. And it's as easy as that. But it can be a bit difficult to get a Thai bank without a longer term visa a lot of the time. Not impossible, but just harder. But yeah, so the cash is king out here always. And you can even, sometimes if you try to pay by card, if they do have a card machine, they'll want to charge you the 3% that they get taxed on top.
Right.
But working it out, whenever I can pay on card, I do. So at 7-Eleven, the convenience shops, I always pay on card there because obviously I have to go and get the cash out, but also that cash is at this exchange rate. Whereas if I pay now on my card, I get the best possible exchange rate at that point.
Do you want to talk a bit about how much stuff you carry and the process of becoming more minimal with your belongings?
When we first came out, we both bought a big suitcase. And the idea behind it was, and it did work. The idea behind it was when we were moving a lot, everything was in a suitcase in packing cubes and in its own correct section that we didn't have to unpack. So it's almost like a wardrobe on wheels.
Yeah.
So we just open it up, everything's got its place, and we just go through that. That was fine. I bought a suitcase from TK Maxx with a 3-year warranty. Cause I was like, I need a good one. It's got to be good. I can't remember exactly. I think it was 21 days in, I think 3 weeks in, that it's a 4-wheel suitcase. One of the wheels snaps off and I'm like, why didn't I go buy this one with a warranty? Whatever, keep zen. I'm on holiday. It's beautiful, blah, blah. A couple of days later, the second wheel came off. So I had this 4-wheel one that had angle really weirdly. And then we're walking along this little a Rayleigh beach, which is almost like an island. It's like a little coast around the mainland. I'm walking, dragging this thing 6 a.m. to get this boat in time to get to a flight. And both the other wheels crack off. And I've got this giant heavy suitcase with 0 wheels at this point. And Thai people are so helpful and accommodating and completely correctly, but it is little ladies first. So we get onto this floating pier, which is a pier made out of all these plastic things. Everyone's hobbling with their bags. All these guys are rushing to help Fabs along the sea and carry her bag. I'm there in this horrible mood. I'm not a morning person, 6 a.m. with my suitcase with no wheels on top of my head. Does anyone want to help me? So just help me. I'm struggling. And that was when we were this can't go on. We can't do this much stuff.
Yeah.
So when we were getting rid of stuff originally in our flat, we watched a documentary by these guys called The Minimalists. And they talk about getting rid of things every single day. So it's about just getting rid of something and finding a better home for it. And it snowballs. So basically it's like a challenge. You get rid of 1 thing first day, 2 things second day, 3 things third day. But basically it just organically snowballs that you end up getting really good at giving things away you don't need. So we were look, we did that before we left. Why don't we just do that now? So when we were moving around every kind of few weeks, every month or so when we first got here, what we both do actually is when we move somewhere, we make a pile of all the clothes, books, whatever we didn't use. And then anything that we're I don't like that t-shirt. I'm not going to wear it. get rid of it. And you can go give it to like some of the Thai workers or give it to charity shops and stuff, offer it to some mates I've met traveling. There's always like a place for things like books, you know. I said there's, you know, every reception has loads of books pretty much at hotels. Just put all your books there. Someone will take them at some point. You can even take one in replacement. So we started doing that. And then if they wanted to keep something, I had one like veto where I was like, yeah, I'll keep it because I want that. But then when we moved to the next place, when we left that place, I did the same thing again. If that thing was in there twice and I was like, I'm just keeping it for the sake of wanting to keep it, I got rid of it. And it's a real freeing feeling because you don't need those things. Like, you know, I've met so many people out here that travel with like a couple t-shirts, couple shorts. Like, I think if I came out again, I'd probably take so much less clothes because you can buy clothes out here cheap and like good quality. And like, there's loads of secondhand stores that are cool. Like, and there's loads of like, you know, new clothes are cheaper. For that, we started to reduce. We moved into one suitcase between us. I bought a brand new suitcase. I was like, Fabs, I bought this one. It's good. Get rid of yours. We'll post yours back home. We'll use mine. Had that for one day. Moved from Chiang Mai to a place called Chiang Rai to do a border run. To cross into the Lao border to go to Lao for a month. And so we got on this bus to get there, got off the bus. The guy took the suitcase out, threw it on the floor, 2 wheels cracked. So I was like, I just sent Fab's thing home, her suitcase home, moved all into one suitcase. It's broken. We're just like, I was so done with it. It's like, I'm so done with it. So then we just kept reducing the whole time we went through Lao. And we got to the point where we like had enough stuff that all our stuff fit in one bag. And now we just do that. So like, we don't feel guilty about it when we're like settled here. We bought some more clothes that we like. We just know that when we do leave here, we're not going to take all of our clothes. And we're never wasteful. We never leave our clothes at the hotel or like, you know, we always give them to someone, or if we can't give them to someone, take them to a charity store or find someone that's happy to take them to a charity store. But a lot of the time, there's local people that will be like, oh yeah, I'll have that. I know someone that will wear it.
Can you talk about how you like buy and sell stuff that you just need for now and then you get rid of it when you move? Like your screen? Yeah,
Facebook Marketplace. Like I bought a monitor whilst we're settled here. I actually bought this on Lazada, which is like Amazon out here. Cost me 2,000 baht with delivery, which is like 50 quid, 45 pounds. And I know that for a fact I can sell this on Facebook for the exact same amount because I've seen loads of them going in Facebook. Sometimes people just want to buy one there and now. Even if I sell it for half the amount, it's 20 quid, you know, it's going to be so worth that to me. So like, yeah, I have done that. We try not to be wasteful. We actually try, as I said, one step at a time. We're trying to work towards more of a zero waste lifestyle. So we're always trying to think and not overuse and not buy things we don't need. Naturally, when it does happen, it's just about getting rid of it either to someone or selling it if we can. Don't do a lot of more buy-in, but for the bigger things like the monitor, and like I've got some DJ decks and stuff. If I want to move to another country and don't want to take those, I'll sell those on and probably just want to get to the next country. I sell for probably the exact same amount.
Yeah, it's good.
I think a lot of the time we're like connected to things, but really that thing everywhere for the same price.
Yeah.
And if you can sell it for a similar price and buy it somewhere else, you know, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, it's a good way of doing it. I think where you've got a limited kind of storage capacity with what you can move around with, it makes you think and be more mindful of what you're carrying.
So much so. But also like, there's ways around it. Like, you know, there's a really great postal system in Thailand. I can just if I really want a load of clothes, I can post them home or post them to my next location in Thailand.
How much
and
does
then
that
travel
kind of
down
cost?
And just pick them up when I'm there.
If you wanted to send it
depends.
back to UK?
Back to the UK. So I sent for Christmas, I sent like a load of stuff. So as I said earlier, where we live Pi, there's like a big walking street that's open every night. It's like a bit like a festival kind of market. And we got loads of like homemade, like handmade stuff for my family, like different candles and books and stuff like that. Send it home in a parcel, like maybe this big.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously it's on weight. I can't remember how much it weighed. I think that cost me about 35, 40 quid to send home.
Mm.
I think it cost Fabs about 70, 80 quid to send her suitcase home. And like it was practically empty, the suitcase, but obviously that's a big box and that was back when not too much. Obviously it's not cheap, but not too much. But so originally we were like, what we'll do is we'll pack our stuff in like parcels and we'll send parcels back home and then we'll get Fab's parents to send parcels out. But I think you could do that, but I don't think it's that cost effective. So we didn't do that, but I think it's a possibility. Like we've always said, if we wanted to move to like Canada or somewhere without going back to the UK first, if it was much more cheap to fly straight there or something, then what we'd probably do is post some clothes back to England, travel light, and then get clothes from England sent to Canada.
Yeah.
Just as like an example. Those things are all kind of, there's loads of different options for everything like that.
What would you say are some of the biggest cultural differences you've noticed between the UK and Thailand?
So much more safe here. So much more safe.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, I go to Thailand, I've seen serpent, people get murdered there. I've seen, the police all dodgy there. Now, don't get me wrong. There is something to be said that I don't think I realised until I left the UK. That in the UK, police don't carry guns. In most other countries, police carry guns. That is a big thing. And like not knowing the law here can be quite difficult. I know a lot of my own rights and the laws in the UK. Like I know if a policeman said something, I'm pretty confident at least that I'd be able to be like, that doesn't check out.
Mm-hmm.
But I have no idea here. However, saying that, I've been in some dodgy situations in the UK. Not been in that many dodgy ones here. I think there's a lot worse going on. People like, is it safe there? I think it's so much safer than the UK. People don't steal here. It's like a massive cultural difference. Obviously, there's still thieves. And especially like in Bangkok, you're talking about like London in the UK. Loads more like thieves in London because how big it is and disparity of wealth and everything like that. There's all of that in Bangkok. There's still like homeless people. But I wouldn't say the crime rate doesn't feel bad at all here. Like, for example, a lot of the time, like, especially when I'm up north here and on the islands, I just went to a coffee shop and worked for 2 hours. And when I left, I was like, I need to go back. So I'm going to call Isaac. And I didn't take my phone. Went back to my motorbike. They've been outside the whole time, not in view. And my key was in it. My phone was in it. No one took it. Been there for like 2 hours. No one does that. If you left a key in your bike or in a car in the UK and walked into a shop, I'd be surprised if it was there when you got back out. Do you know what I mean? Like my mate had a spare key in his car in Southampton. He is an idiot, but he had like a car door that didn't lock. Some drunk opened that and he had a key in the glove compartment.
Right.
Car wasn't broken at all, but like took it for a joyride. Smoked loads of fags in it. And I was like, that's obviously going to happen. Here, you leave your key in your bike and everything. People might move your bike so they can get theirs out, but they'll leave your key in.
That's sick.
That's a massive change, like kind of cultural change, because you just don't think of that. Like, and you see it, like English people here, you see them like walk in, they go to the shop and they walk in with their flipping bike helmets under their arm. Like, man's going to steal my helmet whilst I'm in the shop. And you're just like, mate, I've left cash in my bike for hours and it's not gone. Not that it doesn't happen. It's just a lot less rare. And I think people are a lot more grateful out here. And I think sometimes people think of Thailand as like this third world country. It's not at all. Like, it's a very developed economy. Like, you go to Bangkok, like, I feel like a scab in Bangkok because you go to Bangkok and most people are like impeccably dressed in real nice suits, real like fancy high end fashion, proper clean. And I'm there like, feeling like a slob in my corduroys. Like, but there is a lot of poverty and like a lot of people, like when you're in smaller villages and stuff, that have so much less, but like just want so much less. People don't want as much sometimes. And that's a bit of a cultural difference where like, sometimes people might be like, oh, that family has hardly anything. I want to help them out. Whereas I don't think that family sees it as that. They're like, they might struggle for money, but super happy, big family, loving life, will sit and cook 3 meals for you and like welcome you into their home and not want anything. Like, it's nice. And I've seen that a lot more as well. Like in Laos. Laos is a very poor country when we traveled that. In Bali as well. There's again, lots of rich people in Bali, lots of poor people in Bali. That people are, really grateful, really friendly. A lot of the time you walk past people in England, you're like, you alright, mate? What are you going to look at you like, what the fuck are you looking at? Walk down the road here, even you don't know the language, you can like nod and smile at someone that 99% of the time going to nod and smile back.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a little story that
it's nice.
my friend's dad, he married a Thai lady and he built a house over there and they kind of had quite a big house with gates and stuff. It's one of these stories that just kind of indicates how Thai people look at something versus how English people look at something. And so basically he was sat out on his front kind of porch one day and this guy walked in their gate, closed the gate behind him, walked up to one of the trees and took something like a fruit off the tree. And he like smiled and nodded and then just walked off. And my friend's dad, he's like, what the fuck just happened? That guy just nicked one of our apples or something. He's like, what? And she's like, no, it's fine. She's like, you can walk into his garden and take one of his. And it's just that little story.
Like, do that now.
He was fuming.
Yeah.
He was like, what just happened? What has that guy just done? He's just robbed one of our fruits. I don't know if it was an apple, but that kind of gives a little illustration of how I think someone from the UK would see something versus how someone who's a lot more relaxed would see something.
Yeah, for sure. And like Thai people are massively relaxed. Like they will say a lot. There's like words to live by. There's like, sabai sabai, which is just literally like relax, relax. And like they talk about this thing called like sanuk, which like kind of means happiness or fun, but like the actual word means more than that. And it's more about the feeling of like happiness and enjoying things together. And like, that's kind of like the aim of a lot of like Thai life, or a lot of people's life, is for like sanuk, for like happiness, which like, I think it sounds weird. And a lot of people say, but like our whole society isn't set up to chase happiness. Like the UK society isn't at all. It's set up to kind of chase freedom more. When you look at it, the rich people in the UK and that, most people's like want to get rich and make money so that they can have more free time, or they can have more like, they can have more things. Whereas if you take that, so like a lot more kind of, Southeast Asian cultures are more about like, they have more freedom. They're not chasing the freedom as much. Maybe they want to chase, some people want to chase the freedom to, like travel and get out. But like a lot of people, if there's freedom and happiness there, it's not so much of a chase for money. And, I'm not saying people don't want money. Of course people want money, but it doesn't feel doesn't feel as toxic. And maybe that's just from an outsider. Maybe a lot of Thai people might say they don't like their way of life, but from an outside point of view, I think it's quite beautiful to see a kind of, society more built on respect and freedom rather than, I don't know, I guess more kind of capitalism.
Chasing it and toppling over each other and
chasing it. It's like the rat race, isn't it?
Walking past
like
hungry homeless people and just telling, fuck off, mate, I'm not giving you any
Ignoring
money.
Them.
Like,
yeah, and even people being like, oh, why would you give them money?
Yeah.
They're only going to use it for drugs. You're like, for? Why the hell does it matter what they even use the money for? Even if they want to buy drugs, I think you'd probably want it if you were sat there like all day, like.
Yeah, it's a different way of looking at it.
Yeah, I think
so.
I think it's, as you say, that whole thing of like kind of the more everyone looks after each other rather than, because like, in COVID, Thai government wasn't able, like they gave people money, but they didn't have the funding to be furloughed like we did. So like, even though the Thai government, when they tried to help, they don't have the ability to do that. So a lot of COVID was survived through families sharing food and helping each other out. And, like restaurants giving away things cheaper and helping, all those things. Kind of the community was built even, I think, stronger throughout COVID. And I think a lot of like, as foreigners that were out here through COVID kind of loved it as well, because, people were like, even like when we were first out here, they just kept giving us loads of visas. Like you just keep extending the COVID visa because your money is helping their economy resettle. And like, even one time we were doing our visa application, they were like, what's your reason for wanting to stay here longer? And like one of the like examples on the sheet said like, oh, boost local economy. And I was like, there you go. Like, and that was, on a formal visa application. And that was an example like that those things helped. And I think that kind of like we exaggerated this whole kind of everyone looks after everyone thing, which I think, furlough was so helpful in the UK and helped so many people. And, I think at the time it was the thing that made sense the most, but also like we're all a lot more entitled after it. I think, people feel entitled to money. People feel entitled to more time. People want to get away with doing less. Like, I'm not sure that it necessarily breeded the best. Whereas like, I'm not saying that, the Thai government necessarily wanted to do what they did, but the way that they did, I feel like kind of bred this whole more community even more than there was before.
That's interesting to hear that as well. How do you think that your perspective on life has changed since moving to Thailand?
A lot. I think, as you say, the kind of Southeast Asian respect wears off on you a lot, like in a very positive way. I think that's kind of changed a lot. I think, I guess caring about what people think a lot less as well. It's a lot easier because, a lot of the time I was so concerned with people's thoughts in the UK that I actually don't want any of the same things as me. I was concerned on what they thought of spending money on. I don't want anything they want, so why should I be concerned about their thoughts? I think that's very freeing, but I don't think that's necessarily about Thailand. I think that's about creating the distance from yourself. So I think, and also like mitigating risk is just a massive part of life, part of investment, part of running a business, part of anything. And sometimes just being more comfortable with risk. Like, technically there's always a risk that I could run out of money and have to fly home. But like, what's the actual worst case scenario? I have to borrow some money for a flight home and then get a job and pay the money back off. Doesn't sound that bad to me.
Yeah.
Like, it really doesn't. And I think kind of being able to live with more risk, and it's not risky, it's not like I've got loads of stable clients that work for me, but taking that jump and allowing that risk to happen kind of allows, I think that's one of the biggest changes, being more comfortable with taking risks to allow better decisions.
What do you guys do to, for your self-care? How do you kind of look after yourself? How do you keep yourselves nourished? And like, for example, I was thinking like doctors and dentists, like how do you access things like that as well?
Doctors and dentists and stuff are all here. Some of the best in Bangkok specifically. There's like even visas that you can get for medical visas because like there's some of the best doctors in the world there for really good prices. Obviously that doesn't mean every doctor's amazing and you do have to pay for a lot more, but like even like pharmacies are a lot more well equipped out here. So like if I don't know, like cut my foot bad or like, I don't know, I had something infected, anything like that, I'd just go to a pharmacy. They'd have a good enough understanding and be able to sell me something. If that then didn't work, I might then go to a doctor. In terms of self-care is like a difficult topic because like, I think a lot of people do this traveling. They're like, oh, you don't have time to look after yourself. You don't have, but like, I just think it's just another phrasing of the question in a way. Like It's just another way you have to fit your routine in. Like fitting your routine in the UK is super hard because most of the time, people are working at 9 to 5, which takes up a lot of your time, even more of your energy. And then takes your brain power. So when you want the week off, you don't want to be thinking about things. So I think it's a different kind of struggle to look after yourself because like, it's hard if sometimes people are like, oh, I put on so much weight whilst traveling because I can't find any gyms. Like it is rubbish. Like, there's gyms in every single little town I've ever been to. Like in some of the poorest towns I've been to, they've had like massive gyms.
Mm-hmm.
There was a place in Laos that was like, and it looked like a dive, don't get me wrong. But like I went in, it was like 70p. It was probably like more gym equipment than I've ever seen in a gym. Like these two like massive rooms, there was like 8 or 9 different like dumbbell racks. I was like, how many people could work out in here at once? Like, and that cost me like 70p, and they're not easy to find. And it's hard everyone knows that fitness and everything is about building routine. It's obviously hard to build routine, especially when you're moving, but like drinking lots more water, eating more whole foods and more healthy foods. That's actually quite a lot easier. Food's a lot cheaper. Finding healthier foods is cheaper. In Thailand specifically, you have to sometimes like learn to ask for things without. For example, you get a fruit shake, they always put sugar in it and like sugar syrup. So there's like a lot of sugar added to cooking and like oil and stuff. So like sometimes, you plan to order something healthy and it comes out and it's deep fat fried and coated in sugar and it tastes mega, but it's not that healthy. But it's not, it's just about kind of, making the conscious effort to eat healthy. It's like the pillars of life, like eat healthy, exercise, drink a lot of water, hydrate yourself properly, detoxify. And I think I read a book called like Super Life by a guy called like Darren Oleum. He talks about like the different life forces to look after, like oxidization, as well. So like I do like a lot of breathing techniques, like Wim Hof kind of breathing. I try like every single day, I try and meditate 10 minutes, get there most days, not every day. Don't beat myself up about it. I think one of the biggest things is not beating yourself up when you don't do things. Try lots of different things. Like I did for a bit, do like a power hour, which is something that Ellie Zaleva that I work with recommended, which is like 20 minutes meditation, 20 minutes journaling, 20 minutes exercise. But like a lot of the time when I find myself slipping, I just always bring it back to basics. So like I do like a lot of home workouts, doing like I want to get a lot more into like kinesthetic, but also like kind of, different home workouts. So you do like circuits basically, just literally build yourself up circuit. Like you can set one for like core and chest, set one for like arms. You can do like a pull and push day, like on circuits. My mate who does a lot of gymming, James, we met him in Vietnam and he helped us do like a gym, helped us build like a spreadsheet of like a gym, but like each one has like pull day, a push day, and like some other bits, but each one has a section for in the gym and a section for not in the gym. So we've got like resistance bands and like a yoga mat and stuff that we use at home. But I always kind of bring it back to basics. When I find that I'm not doing lots of exercise, I just bring it back to 10 minutes a day. Probably I just bring it back to 10 minutes a day. And sometimes just forcing yourself to do it. And, building those habits is the only thing that keeps you going. They keep themselves going, and I always try and like live with the whole kind of idea of just master today. If you master today, then everything else will fall into place. Like you just concentrate on today. So, if you can do like an hour long run, great. If you can do a 10-minute run, 10-minute walk, just go do it and you've done something. And I think with mental health specifically, those things just add up. There's so many things that are stacked up against you, like, bad eating, not enjoying your job, not liking the society you're in, reading the news, getting upset. All those things, just things that can add to negativity. If you just keep trying to add to the positivity, you kind of start balancing that out. But I think a lot of that helped in COVID. Like I'd never meditated once before lockdown and never done any of that. And then when I found myself never really struggled too much mentally. But then when I had to deal with it all myself, I'm a massive extrovert. I hated being at home alone.
Yeah.
But I think that I learned a lot of tools about self-help then, which I think are just so invaluable.
Yeah, mate, that's all really good. I'm glad you found what works for you. And I think they are the general points that help, if you're not, it's when you make some big routine of I'm going to do A to Z and I'm going to change my whole life, it's difficult to do. And you're right in saying not to beat yourself up. But what you basically just said
that's a hard lesson though.
Yeah. What you basically just said is the same kind of thing as this podcast I listened to this morning about micro habits. I don't know if you've heard that phrase before. I hadn't really heard it.
Yeah, is that the guy that wrote Atomic Habits, James?
I'm not sure. I've just heard this podcast. It's a podcast like Psychology in Your 20s. It's a really good podcast if you want to check it out. But
cool. Yeah, I will do.
That is basically the way that I've always done my habits and tried to build something. Like, I'd never called it that, but I only really found out this morning that it is that. And it's about just doing small manageable things. And when it's not going the way you want it to, just come back, do your 10-minute walk and like, sometimes I go to the gym with my girlfriend and she'll be like, oh, let's only stay for 45 minutes. I'm like, yeah, but that's fine because we're here. Like, we turned up. 45 minutes is better than not coming at all. So don't worry about it.
There's a story about that guy at the gym that was like, I'm sure someone will tell us who this is, but there was some guy that went to the gym, lost loads of weight, and he just turned up every day. And he did nothing, but he turned up every single day. But then he's there. You've got that even done with. You've done that every day for a week. Then he started turning up and going on the running machine for 10 minutes every day. And then, started to build that confidence. And as you started to snowball, he then was like, a few months in, and he was lifting weights. He didn't feel like an idiot like he used to feel like. Because Mosey says it. He says it takes 20 hours to get good at anything. But it takes people years to start the first hour.
That is so true.
And I just think it's so true. It doesn't matter if and I think that's massively with my thing. Like I work in digital marketing now. I didn't know even what digital marketing, what I wanted to go into, but if I was learning something, like I've done loads of courses on Facebook ads. I don't run Facebook ads. That's not what I want to do. My friend Joe does that amazingly. So anytime I get work for Facebook ad clients, I know that you and I have both spoken to Joe on different occasions, and I paid him to teach me how to do it. I don't need to do that, but now I know how that works. I know that I can sell that.
Yeah.
I know that if somebody asks me for advice about that in a marketing meeting, I can say enough that I understand and say, I also know specialists that I work with that I can get them. Bang, I've got me some work and my friends some work just by understanding something, And I think you can never, ever, ever pay for a course that's a waste of money. Because even if you learn, never ever want to go to that course again. Pretty worth your money. I think, and then that's a key thing for sure.
I think one of the biggest things about starting and not having that paralysis of saying this, like some people say, I want to do this thing. I want to start saving money. I want to go to the gym, and then don't get around to it. And it's what you just said about Alex or Mosey about takes 20 hours to learn something, but 20 years to even start it or whatever. It's because of all the things that people are scared of happening. And a lot of times it's like big irrational fears. People are scared of being embarrassed or being seen as a failure or not being good at it. Well, the reality is that you probably are going to fail. You probably are going to be bad at it. And you probably are going to feel embarrassed and feel nervous.
And there's probably times where you might look like an idiot.
Yeah, but that is part of doing everything. And if you never start it, then you've missed the opportunity to get good at it and enjoy it because you were scared. And this is a big thing of the way that I think about things is just try it and just go through it.
But it says that even about Rich Dad Poor Dad. A lot of business books I find boil down to a lot of the same key concepts, which I think that is one of them. Basically the difference between, and a lot of people rewrite this quote in different ways, the difference between successful people and non-successful people. The successful people get better at dealing with fear, embarrassment and failure.
100%.
And it is that, and it's not, we might fail in everything we're doing right now, but if I learn that this is not the avenue I want to go down, then I know that my next business, I won't do that. If you look at how many of the biggest millionaires in the world have they have companies that have flopped before that. it's Jeff Bezos is a weirdo. He's the only person that doesn't have like a complete failed business before. But do you know what I mean? Like you have to fail to kind of go forward. As long as you're falling forward, you're moving forward. And I think, as you say, being not okay with failure. No one likes to fail, but like that Rich Dad Poor Dad talks about like investing, like an invest in money. And it's like, people don't want to lose money. And he's like, do you think anyone wants to lose money? No one wants to lose money. But if you put your money into savings now, the way that your savings doesn't increase enough that it outrates inflation. So basically your savings are always going to go down in value. Wherever you save in. And like, even if you go to like safe investing, like ETFs and mutual funds and things like that, you're not going to make as much money, like, but it's safer. But if you do the higher risk things, the people that are okay doing the higher risk things and mitigating that risk and dealing with failure when they fail are the people that are going to make money, because you've got to take the risk. Like, you never like, and then everyone says it, but like, you can't win the lottery without buying a ticket.
All right, just one final thing before we close it off. So what advice would you give to others who are considering becoming digital nomads or traveling and living abroad?
I'd say there's kind of two parts. First of all, I just think do it. Like, I know that sounds so stupid, but just do it. Because like the amount of people I've met that like moved out here and were like, oh, I never thought about working as digital nomad, and then got a teaching job and then another job they liked, ended up staying out here. Like, the only way you're going to learn this thing is being, as you say, putting yourself in the deep end, but also being with other people that are already doing it. You might go to a coffee shop one day and be like, mate, notice you're working on what are you doing? Oh, that's how you make money that way. Oh, cool. Like, I could think about doing that maybe. Or, oh, you make money that way. I definitely don't want to do that. But, I thought, I'll come out here and I'll learn to day trade and I'll just make day trading. And then I see some of my friends that day trade and are looking at charts for 8 hours a day. And I'm like, just defeats the whole point of moving out here. Like, and that might work for some people, but that just didn't work for me. And I guess trial is the only way to know. Also, you can do it without having to fully commit. Like, there's so many places that are a bit closer to home, like Albania, Croatia. Even if you look at like the cost of living in like Bulgaria, you can go live somewhere like that for a month, 2 months, 3 months, whatever, and just try it out. Like, if you go out there and you're like, I actually don't have enough clients, maybe I need to go back to the UK and do some more like client hunting. Cool. Like, no worries. Or you go out and you go, I hate working on just my laptop without a monitor. Then you find next time you go somewhere, you pay for a house that's a bit more, that has a nice office, and get yourself a monitor. Like, and all those things you learn. So I think that's the biggest piece of advice. Also, if you can come out here and you have some way of earning, like I worked 2 days a week when I originally came out here for a client, and then Fabs did the teaching. If you have any earning out here, you can, even if you're reducing the rate your savings going down, you can be out for ages, and you're just storing more time where you're going to find out how to do it and find out what you want to do, or find out it's not for you. A lot of people come out, be digital nomads, and they're like, oh, actually, I love the lifestyle, but I just want to be in the UK. I know people that are in like Gran Canaria and places that aren't far from the UK that are in like similar time zones. So it's easier. Just doing it is a massive thing for sure. I think as well, try and learn a skill. Like, for the last 4 years, I've been in some capacity learning something about digital marketing, all from free courses, all online, all in my own time. But like, I've always been trying to learn something. And like, I've spent hours and hours doing, like, I've done a course on Facebook ads as well. I don't sell Facebook ads. I don't intend to sell Facebook ads. It's not wasted time, because I learned so much about marketing. Just keep learning, trying to do something, find something you might want to do. This book, For Our Work Week, that I mentioned earlier, that hasn't been instrumental in it. There's 2 paragraphs in that where it talks about if you don't want to be an entrepreneur and you want to work for a company, completely fair enough, completely fine. You can make a lot of money doing that. I know people out here that probably make more than working jobs remotely. Some of them started working remotely in the UK, then pitched the idea to their boss. I said, I'm looking at moving. I'd love to stay on. I'd stay on the same hours. Some of them end up doing the same hours, same time. I just had a power cut. But yeah, I know a lot of people that work UK hours working remote. So if you're working a 9 to 5, we're plus 7 hours here. So that's 4 o'clock till 12 o'clock. That's a bar shift back in the UK. Some people work till 1 a.m. Some people end up doing the same hours, but just doing them here and catching, doing loads of work in the day and then being online for those hours, but they've already done the work in the morning. Yeah. And then like I do freelance, so I pick my hours, but like a lot of the time, like one of my best like pitches to sell people is just like, you know, if you have an issue in the evening and you send that to me at the end of the work day, I've got 7-8 hours before you wake up that I'm working. I can have things completely resolved by the time you wake up and start work tomorrow.
Yeah, that's good.
Which can be really great for like our line of work as well.
All right, cool. So we'll just wrap it up. And is there anything else you want to share just about your experience doing this, just to finish this off?
Yeah, I guess the main kind of point I'd want to get across is like, it really wasn't that hard. I didn't do anything that special. You know, it's just about knowing where you want to go and starting to go there, taking the leap. And also like one thing that I think is so important, I don't think I've even mentioned, is like, there's never, ever a right time. People are always like, oh, but I could save more. Oh, but I could get promotion in this job and then have more. Or I could, you know, oh, well, actually I've got rent until this date. There's always, always, always a reason not to go. And, you know, oh, it's my grandma's birthday next month, or, you know, I might as well wait until summer. There's always a reason to not go. The only way you can combat that is by going. And like, what have you got to lose? Like, especially people our age, you know, if you're in your 20s, even like your early 30s, like these are the times you're meant to take risks. You've got enough time that you can go back to zero and start again. And I know like you've spoken about that before, talking about like knowing, you know what you do if you go to zero now. So what have you got to lose?
Yeah.
Like, I know for a fact that if I had £0, 0 pence, nothing, I've run bars my whole life. I've worked in events my whole life. I could go back and get that work and, you know, either save and leave or get a good job in that. Like it's not the end of the world. Not take the risk. Like, you know, why not do it? So much reward, like so much adventure and places to explore. But
yeah, mate, that's lovely. That's a lovely way to finish that off. I like that. I really appreciate you doing this, taking the time out to have this chat. I think people are going to find it useful, and I think you kind of dispelled some of the maybe like preconceived notions people have about like the problems that you'd face, and like there was no magic trick involved. You just kind of made a plan, you stuck to it, and you just got something done. And yeah, mate. It's good. And you can see how it's, you've said how it changed your experience of life. You've learned about a new culture and you're able to meet loads of new friends. Yeah, mate, it sounds really good. I think I personally am looking to do something similar. So I probably got 1,000 more questions for you, but from my perspective that it's something that I would like to do, I feel like you're kind of like a good example of someone who wasn't in a different situation to what I am, who's just kind of made a plan and made it happen. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think we've got quite similar situations for sure. Like, you know, and even similar like work that we do and stuff. But I think, yeah, as you say, it's not that hard. I really hope that this can like help people. Fabs and I have like an Instagram, Nomadic, no problems. We often get people ask us loads of questions on there. Really happy to always answer questions on there. Any way that we can help. Would love to see all of our mates coming out here doing the same thing for sure. And like, you know, we hope that throughout our life, it can take us to different places. And I guess that's the dream.
So where's next? What you guys, where are you going to be in a year, 2 years?
I want to do a bit of Europe. I want to like stay in Europe for a bit. So Europe's difficult because you can only do 90 days within 180 at the moment because of Brexit and everything in most countries. So we'd have to do 3 months there and then come back to the UK or leave Europe 3 months. But I want to do a bit more Europe. Eventually we want to move into van life. Might do that in Australia or Canada. But I'm much more enjoying living somewhere that's cheaper than the UK rather than more expensive. But yeah. And then South America and Central America has always been on the cards because it's so cheap and great there, but not sure yet. Just keeping it kind of month by month as we go, seeing where we want to go, seeing where it calls us. And it's nice not having, 12 months rents to hold us down to one place. Like we can, if we want to leave, just leave.
Yeah, mate. That's the life. Nice one.
Banging, mate.
All right. Well, thank you, mate. I really appreciate it.
No, thanks for having me. I'm really, really grateful to have the time to do this for sure.
Nice one.
And apologies